Now, I have shot in factories, in the woods, everything. But let me tell you, this day two was my most difficult, I think, of the 3 days to shoot. And not because of any drama or anything like that, but just mainly the lighting. So if you don't know, I went to Estonia. If you haven't already watched video one, go watch video one. Talked about that runway and the first day of Estonian Fashion Festival. This was day two. This was at the Estonian was it National Museum, and this was an unusual setup. Now, typically runways are straight up and down. This was not. Let me tell you, this was so not. I don't know how to describe it, but let me draw something. Wait 1 second. This is my terrible drawing of it. Okay, so let's talk about what this is. So that square is what the models would walk around. They're around the edges. They couldn't get into it. They walked around the edges of it, right? I was going to draw this on the video, but I just felt like it was just too much. The squiggly lines that you see are where seating is, okay? And the arrows in are where some of the models would enter to come onto this runway, okay? So there was no place. Now, you might think, well, Khandie, why not stand here? Right? Because this is the screen here that they would stand in front of. Well, guess what? I couldn't because this was glass and there was performances going on against that. So in the end, I had to choose if I wanted to stand here or here. And you might go, Khandie, what are these little boxes? They're lighting rigs, and also there was a stage here. So you couldn't stand here because the audience were right up against the runway or there, and this was at a diagonal. There was no clear space to stand. So what did I have to do? Nook in kind of here and duck in and out every time a model came in or out. And the reason why I chose that side is because the sun would, this is a glass, by the way, glass dome. So if I try and explain this, this is like a glass tunnel with like open air at the base. So there was like grass growing there that wasn't inside the building. I don't know how, I was like an annex, right? And the sun was on this side and coming in here. So you had all the light and then blazing natural light, which going through glass created this haze. Welcome to day two of Estonian Fashion Festival. I won't say it was the hardest, but it was up there. It was up there. It was fantastic. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy it, but it was one of those moments. I'm going to share some of the clips on you because I went to the rehearsals, and even the rehearsals, I was like, I thought this would help me. This has made it worse because once again, all of the models did in each collection did their own thing. They had a plan. Some did little dances, some didn't. And then throughout the whole thing were these two exceptional dancers that kind of made the flow through. So they were like constantly dancing and moving. So they were sometimes in your shot, sometimes not in your shot, sometimes part of the catwalk, sometimes not part of the catwalk. Sometimes they were rolling out carpets to be part of the catwalk, rolling it back. Like it honestly was like pure theatre, I have to say. I loved it. It was so different. It just, the natural light would hit at the most beautiful times, and then it was hit at the worst times, and you'd worry about lens flare, and then you had this dust in the air because they put, not dust, what was it called, smoke for atmosphere, and it looked beautiful. And the floors were this polished concrete, really polished concrete, so you had all these reflections, but no matter where you shot, you had reflection. At one point, sadly, I'm just going to bring this back up, here was the restaurant, okay? And people, although no one was in the restaurant, some of the models, when they finished, decided to sit there, which meant I could no longer shoot using this space. It happens. It's one of those things. It's cool. It's cool. But it was one of those things I was like, how am I going to do this? So I thought, what am I going to do? I looked at my lenses. I had the 70 to 200, 24 to 70, and the 40 mil. And I thought, you know, I'm going to have to stay on the 70 to 200. I'm going to have to try and use that separation, get that bokeh going, get that shallow depth of field. I had to shoot because I had to work with it all the time. I shot in RAW. I had to use manual white balance. Honestly, just because of all the different lighting, you can't just have one fixed white balance. So you had to kind of adjust it as the light changed, and the light changed so much all the time. And I think for the audience, it was sensational. They must have loved it because no matter where you sat, whether you were down the side of the square or at the, if you like, the arrowhead, you got an exceptional view because everything just happened around you. Photography wise, and I know some of my fellow photographers were like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm staying in one spot and this is what I'm doing. The film crew were there from the TV shows. They came next to me. We sat next to each other. We were like, this is where you are really challenged, both technically, but also your self-awareness. At one point, I was shooting and then running back to allow a model to come through. And then they bring something else. I was like, ah! And I just had to, I think at one point I almost slid under the stage to give them room. I did mention I got hit. I got a bruise from it. There was... Somebody was unhappy that they didn't have a seat on the front row, and they didn't mean to, but they it was talked about in the podcast. They slammed a chair down a little heavy, and it connected with me. It's fine. It's fine. It's one of those things that happens. People get, there's a lot of stress doing these shows and people get very worked up about it. And I'm 100% okay with it. I will say I wished I had the opportunity to shoot some of the fashion rather than just shoot the runway. Because the fashion on this one was just beautiful. In fact, I wish I showed it for all of them. It was a really interesting setup. The musician was fantastic. It was very much this fashion show was very much inspired by the traditional Estonian life, Estonian wear, and you could really see that coming in. And I think it was absolutely beautiful. It made me want a bonnet. Actually, there's this beautiful collection of almost like flapper girls from it just, and the makeup was just, honestly, everyone in this thing just knew what they were doing. It was so, and bear in mind it's all sustainable as well. It was absolutely sensational. Now, I would say for me, when you have faced with this very challenging setup, you kind of have to go, okay, I need to nail the shot. I need to get whatever I can. But I also felt that the light was so beautiful at times, so beautiful. And it really gave this almost otherworldly feel to it because you had these huge glass panels with light coming in, diffused by it. And then the smoke was for the atmosphere. And then you have the lights from the stage. There's something very, very beautiful about it. It was probably the most challenging of all the 3 days in terms of thinking on your feet, or in my case, on my ass, because I had to sit on the floor sometimes. I also wanted to make sure I wasn't in any else's shot, so I kind of ducked behind a few things. There was a lot more audience at this one. You know what? It was good. It was really good. You could see that this space is absolutely perfect for this kind of thing. And it made me wonder what they're going to do for the final day. We had heard it was going to be traditional runway, which was a bit of a sigh of relief because we had been for the last 2 days been like thinking of it. Yes, my job was hard. It was hard to do. But I don't mind that. I like being challenged. My tip is when you have these unusual runways is you have to attend those rehearsals or at least have a walkthrough and pay attention and just understand that you can't get every shot. Typically I don't want to be in anyone else's line of shot, but with the position it was in, you couldn't. And those, if Phil, if you listen to podcasts, was saying that he felt like, they weren't lighting it for photographers. And I've always said that the fashion runways are not lighting it for us. They're lighting it for the audience. They want the audience to feel something, to engage with the collection. And our job is to capture that in whatever way that is. If that's having massive ISO, whacking it up, then it is. But you could see why it was so difficult for so many people because that ever-changing light. And that's where you have to be comfortable knowing your settings. Like I was thought it was, again, I had my monopod on and, you're just flicking through and your eyes on the camera and you're just looking and you need to know where your dials are because any second you're taking your eyes off to adjust, you were missing shots. So you have to know. And that comes down to knowing how your camera works and knowing where your buttons are and your settings are. At one point I was photographing, wait till it read the cards without even looking, flipped out the battery, put the new one in, turned it back on. And I remember the photographer next to me went, all right, slick. I tend to do this as a tip is I have like a body bag, like what do you call it? I've got one here. I normally have a black one, but this is like a bum bag, body bag, right? It's actually got my new book inside. Look, my new book comes out soon. This is called No One Effing Cares About Your... This is the author's copy. No one cares about your photography. So that'll be out on the 1st of July, by the way. That goes across my body. And inside that, I'll have memory cards and spare batteries. I put the used batteries in one pocket, the fresh ones in the other pocket, and the memory cards equally, so they're not mixed up. And I keep it in. Now, because my backpack, I will either... Because I can't always keep it on my back in this situation, I tucked it away and locked it up. But typically, if I can, I'll keep my backpack with me, but in this light I couldn't. So sometimes it pays just to have a little backpack that you can, like a little bum bag, crossbody bag that you can just dip in and out of. There is a lot of pressure to deliver these images, and I wish I had the photo to show you. There's this amazing photo that the videographer took of me. I'm sat on the floor editing the pictures while all these amazingly clad fashionistas and beautiful people are all around me on their phones taking selfies, and I'm there working. But it's just the nature of the beast. I did it. Now, this is day 2, okay? So this, you can see from the video clips kind of what it was like to shoot. I'm sure you'll appreciate how difficult it was, and my expert drawing. I'm sure you're like, wow, that's amazing. How are you not an artist? But don't forget now, I want you to check out video 3 on this series, which is about the more traditional one and how we cope with that, because I think that's the one where you're going to learn the most from, because that's the one you're more likely to come up against. Don't forget, now is the time to subscribe so you keep in touch. So, yay, let's get on with the next video. I might record it today. I might do an outfit change to make it look like I've recorded it on another day. I haven't. Okay.